All right, everybody, welcome to WRUULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Sonics Community Radio with Global Soul. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer. And my special guest today is artist known as Dave Conrey, and he is a really nice guy, very creative. Welcome to the show, Dave. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. Everybody tuning in, I saw Dave on TikTok and I started watching your videos and I was like, hey man, I dig your creative stuff. And, I'm an artist and a creator myself and, got this little radio show. How would you like to be on the show? And so here we are. So I'm really happy to have you.
This is the first for me, actually, for a full radio show. I've been plenty of podcasts, but this is the first as a live radio event. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, dude. I always love having people on the show, and especially creative folks who are really interesting. My son Sebastian plays live music for us on the show too, so that's one of the things that is part of our show. So Bass, are you ready to rock and roll? Mm-hmm. All right, here's Sebastian Messer, everybody. Awesome, Bass. Thank you so much. So Dave, can you give our audience just a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's interesting because, I just hit 50 this year, and I feel like, you get to a certain age and there's like so many different aspects of life, right? So it's like, how do you compartmentalize all those stuff? But the roundabout idea is that I'm an artist and designer, graphic designer based out of, Southern California, in Long Beach, California. And I just, where I am currently in my creative pursuits is doing my own thing. Obviously, I'm making my own art, making my own merchandise and shirts and stuff like that. But I'm on social media on all these different ways, trying to encourage creativity and that exploration within other people. And not just the fact that, the act of doing the art, but rather disregarding limitations and rules and what other people say about what art should be or what design should be or what creative exploration should be, and just kind of encouraging that with other people, and that's kind of been, the cornerstone of everything that I talk about and do these days.
I really loved, I came across you on TikTok and I really loved your videos. Especially where you were talking the same kind of thing, like where you're encouraging people, because I'm 44 and I just think it's wonderful. There's a lot of stuff out there where people are like, oh, you should do this or you should do that. And then I think people have a lot of self-imposed limitations as well, because they think, oh, well, I'm not this or I'm not that, or I don't have this resource or I don't have that resource. And, it's interesting because your videos are very upbeat and positive and, realistic though. They're not like, oh, you can do whatever you want, just believe in yourself. It's like, no, you got to do the work, and that's one of the things I love is like you encourage people, you show off your stuff that you're doing and your art and all that. And I think it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, and it's one of the things that I'm keenly aware of and I try to avoid is there's a lot of, in a lot of especially entrepreneurial or enterprising pursuits, there's a lot of this hustle culture where it's like, you gotta hustle, gotta keep moving. And it's like, I don't necessarily agree with that 100%. I mean, yes, work is important. You want something, you want to achieve something, then you have to, you can't just, manifest it in your brain and it's just going to happen, right? Especially when it comes to creative work. It's like you actually have to do the work. You have to get it out there to the people. But then there's this, it's like I try really hard to make sure people don't think that it's like it has to be go, 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 go. Right?
Yeah.
There's also you time, and and it, like kind of regaining your creative energy back in order to be able to express it the next day, rather than have to just kind of deplete your resources every single day all the time.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of that hustle culture out there. I kind of bought into that too for a while. I started getting up at like every day at like 5 a.m. and I did this little thing called a 5 a.m. Hustlers Club. And it was just me and my friends that we would get up and we'd start, just working on our own thing. And I do believe in getting up early and working on your stuff before like, you go to your 9 to 5 gig or whatever. But for 4 or 5 years, I did this every day. And it's only been like the last year or so that I've kind of like relaxed that, where I don't get up and start working on my stuff right away, because I felt some burnout and just got tired of, one of the things that I like to do, and one of the things that I really like about you and other folks that are creative, are the folks that are the doers, and that they finish projects and they put work out there. And that's something for me. I was like, well, I'm doing a lot of work, I'm getting a lot of stuff done, but what direction am I going in? And I had to kind of pull back and say, well, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go with this art? Or, what do I want to do with my, my writing or whatever, And I really dug I really enjoyed seeing your graffiti art style. I don't know the best way to call it, but, with your spray paint stuff.
Yeah.
And,
go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I was gonna say that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about like your videos was, because like when I first started watching, like your videos were mostly about like you had these spray paint cans that you decoed or whatever, and then you had like these paintings and stuff like that. And there was this one, it was a shark, and I think it said like "do the work" or something like that. It just stuck out in my head, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And those little hats that you made, I was like, man, this is pretty cool. And you had you had your own style. And then you just put your style to whatever, piece of art you were making. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's something that I've come to over time, is that, over my lifetime, especially since, just a little backstory is that when I didn't start making art from when I was a kid. I mean, I was always creative. I was always doodling and drawing pictures or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I didn't do any kind of real deep exploration into my art until many years later. In fact, I was in school back in college in marketing, and I kind of hated that. When I actually got a job, I hated it. So I went back to school for graphic design. Okay. And I was a designer and an art director for, basically the majority of my professional career. But while I was an art director for this magazine publishing company, magazine publishing sounds really interesting, and it was a good job, but because of the really quick turnaround of the projects, right? You have to have something out every single month, mm-hmm. right? And a lot of times it's a feast or famine situation, where the first half of the monthly cycle, I'm not doing much because I'm waiting for the editors and everybody to finish their stories and get me all the content. So then I have to build the whole magazine, in a very short period of time. And so it's very like moving, and the creative aspects were a little bit lacking. Like it was more production than it was creative.
Right.
And so there was a point while I was doing that where I thought to myself, like, if I don't do something, if I don't have some sort of creative output now, I feel like I'm going to lose it completely. Like I'm not going to have any creative inspiration for anything. And so I started painting. I started making digital collages on my downtime at work. Mm-hmm. I was using work time to make some of these digital collages that I would turn around and sell as prints on Etsy and stuff like that. And I went about several years with just like doing this style and that style and this approach and that approach and this surface and that surface. And it was finally, I got to a point where it was probably back in 2016 where I was just thinking to myself, like, I'm all over the place and I need to kind of focus this energy. I think I kind of found my rhythm with some of the work that I was doing on like canvas and paper, that I felt like this feels good. Now, how do I take what I'm doing here and apply it to everything else? How do I take this style and apply it to, like you said, cans or hats, or, you know, for physical stuff, or if I'm working on my computer or my iPad, how do I apply that same idea in those spaces as well? Obviously, I'm not going to spray paint my computer, but, you know, there's spray paint oriented brushes, right? You know, or I'll spray paint something in my studio and I'll take a picture of it and then bring that into the art digitally or whatever. But yeah, so I just got to a point a couple of years ago where it's just like, it's time for me to, now that I really understand what I like about what I'm doing, now it's time to apply that same methodology to everything that I decide to make.
I'm kind of like in that phase of my life too. I had a job, like it's almost the same kind of story right there. I had a job that was just grinding me into the ground. I mean, like literally it was just pounding me down. And I started doing photography and started writing. We have a little local paper here, and that creativity, I think, saved me from that monotony. And I'd always, well, with art or whatever, when I was a kid, I used to like to draw a lot, I liked to sketch a lot and whatever. But as an adult, I hadn't done it. You know, I was like, you know, here and there I would go through these little, you know, whatever. I think around 2008, I went through a spell where I did it for a couple of years, and I just kind of let it go. And yeah, I had a job that was just, oh my gosh, it was just horrible, just a horrible grind like that. And I started doing the art stuff. A friend of mine asked me to do an art show. It was a spoken word poetry show, and they had a live jazz band. And then I was creating these. Well, she said I could do whatever I wanted, so I bought Conte crayon, and then I bought one of those giant oversized clipboards, you know, like those artist clipboards or whatever. And I put it on an easel. And as the poets would get up there and speak, I was just creating these little Conte crayon paintings.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And that, since then, I have just kind of checked out like the different stuff that I like and different stuff that I really enjoy. And I dig folks like you who, you know, you've lived life and you got your own style, and it's not just a regurgitation of what everybody else is doing. And I'm not knocking anybody. I know everybody, you know, is out there, they do their own thing. I get that. And you know, imitation is a great way to learn. There's nothing wrong with imitation. I'm not trying to knock anybody, because you have to start somewhere. But at some point, you have to break out of that, and you have to have your own style, you know?
Yeah.
And I think as an artist, that's the key, is finding your own voice. And I'm still in that phase now where, like, I've been writing, and I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to write? I've kind of been in an impasse the last couple of months with what I want to write about, and I've been kind of pulling back, like you were talking about, saying, you decided you wanted to focus on how could I bring this into this area, or the same thing into that area, or whatever. That's exactly where I'm at right now. Yeah, it's a weird phase to be in.
Well, and the funny thing is though, as confident as I may come across about my work, I mean, I still struggle with it too. You know, I have my moments as well where there's just like, it just feels like, am I doing what I said I was going to do? Am I pursuing this in the manner that I said I was going to? Is the output representational of the idea? You know, and so, you know, I check myself all the time, you know, and for the most part, you know, it's like a usual, but every once in a while I have to step myself back. And actually, this happened right at Thanksgiving.
Oh, really? Okay.
I had a moment here just at this Thanksgiving where so in September I had picked up an iPad, my first iPad in a long time, and I've been wanting to dive into this drawing app called Procreate. And I like you ever go to, we have Apple stores nearby, and I'd go to the Apple store, and every time I would go in there, like my son would be playing video games, my wife would be looking at whatever, and I'd go and find an iPad and just start drawing on this Procreate app. I was like, it's about time I did this, because I've been telling myself I'd do it for so long. So I finally get the iPad, I finally get Procreate, and then I start spending all my time in there. In fact, kind of going back to what you were saying about like that exhibition that you did where people would do their spoken word and you were doing drawing. I literally have my iPad here in front of me right now, and I am kind of doodling the inspiration I'm getting while we're speaking.
Oh my gosh, I do that too, Dave. I love to doodle and draw while I'm talking with folks sometimes. That's so cool.
So I'm doing it right now. And the thing was that I hadn't fully embraced the idea of who I was as an artist in regards to this particular platform. This I was just kind of drawing whatever. I was almost going back to the board where it was before, where I was like, I'm just drawing anything. I actually participated in this thing called Inktober, where you essentially, there's a list of prompts that are created by this group called Inktober, and you start on October 1st and you go all the way to October 31st, and you essentially draw whatever prompt for that particular day. And I was going through that, and I was doing the whole thing, and a lot of them, I'm really proud of a lot of the drawings, but at a certain point I was like, these are, yes, it's me because I drew it, but it's not necessarily indicative of the work that I want to create. And so I had to check myself on that. But I still felt like I was still in that mode all the way through November. And as I was approaching Black Friday, and I was doing some Black Friday specials and Cyber Monday specials on my merchandise and whatnot, as I was doing that and looking at it, I was thinking to myself, like, this doesn't feel right. Like, some of the stuff that I put out there didn't feel right. And so I had a really long conversation with myself about where I wanted to be as at least when it comes to my digital art, where I wanted to be with that. And so I said, okay, so we're gonna rethink everything. And I'm in progress of it right now, because I'm kind of making a new collection of things, and I'm not sharing those until the collection is ready.
Oh, that's smart.
So I'm not sharing anything yet, but snippets, I'll share a thing here and there, but for the most part, it's all going to be a big release later on, sometime after the first of the year. But it's made me more focused on what kind of work that I actually want to share. Like, what do I want to be emblazoned with both my art and my name on a T-shirt, if that's what it's going to be, right? If somebody's going to buy a shirt with my art, I want them to feel like it's not something I just made so that I could make a shirt. It's something that I made that just happens to look good on a shirt.
Yeah. Everybody, you're tuning in today to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Sonics Community Radio with Global Soul. I love that, Dave, because it is, I feel like, important when it's honest and it's true and it's you, it just comes through naturally, and I like that, because that's what I've been kind of going through myself lately. It's like, well, because I've been focusing on my writing, but short story here, a friend of mine, a couple of friends of mine, they made one of these comic books a couple years ago, and I interviewed them, and they spent a couple of years building up this comic book and whatever, and the lady, her name is Angela. She was the illustrator for this comic book or whatever, and she sent me a message a couple months back saying that one of her friends needed an illustrator for a children's book, and that the other illustrator had to bow out of the project for personal reasons or whatever, and asked me if I would be interested in helping the person, and I said, yeah, sure. I'll check it out. I don't know, we'll figure it out or whatever. And so the person messaged me, and they liked my style of illustration, but they had another person lined up in between or whatever. So, that was, that's whatever. Commission is commission, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I don't really take it to heart until have cash money in hand. You know what I mean?
Right.
And So last week I got a message from the person again asking me if I was still interested in the illustration commission or whatever. And I was like, yeah, but I can't do it by Christmas because they wanted to put the book out at the time. It was like, they wanted to do it by Christmas or whatever. And I was like, there's just no way I can get this done in the next, get 5 or 6 illustrations done for you in the next, week or so. And they're like, oh no, whatever. It's not, I'm going to do it, after the first of the year. And it was pretty cool because like, I like to draw, and I self-published I self-published a children's book, and I did some presentations around, some schools here in Savannah, and the kids really liked it, but I've been writing horror stuff, and it's just kind of weird how sometimes your art pulls you in different directions, You ever get that feeling? Like you're like, oh, some people dig this and some people dig that, and,
Yeah, I mean, it's both a blessing and a curse, because sometimes it can be, it can take you down in kind of new pathways that you didn't expect you to go. Like, I mean, me painting the hat was a bit of a fluke, because one of my followers saying, if you would put that on a hat, I would buy it. And I was like, oh yeah, well, okay, I'm going to put it on a hat. You better buy it.
Oh, okay.
I did. Yeah. And he bought it, right? He ended up buying it. And then everybody else said, oh, I want one too, right? And so, that's how it ended up becoming. But at a certain point, it was like, okay, I'm like, I don't know how many creative people do this. In fact, it's probably more common than I think. But I have a tendency to get into projects for a short period, right, and feel like, okay, I felt like I've tackled this thing. I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish from this, and now I'm done. Now I
feel the same way. I'm kind of like, I've done that. I'm ready to do something new, something different.
Right.
Yeah, I feel that same way.
And so that's where it was with those hats. At a certain point, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do any more hats.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just not going to. If an order came through, great, but I'm not going to promote them. Because I was just like, I'm done with those, because I want to do something else.
Right.
And so that's just, it's all about the exploration. And like right now, I mean, even, in this, where I'm at for this week, like I'm actually doing some writing myself. I'm writing a short little, like a few short stories on my kind of a memoir about how music affected me as a kid. And how it kind of made me, the person I am. Because music is, I don't play music, right? I don't play music, but I've always been a music lover. And then I have all these stories where music is kind of like the center point of the things that happened, in that even if it wasn't the music itself that was the main character. But so I'm making this zine that's going to be a mix of that writing and then the art, and that is actually going to be that the point of the zine is actually to have something to create while I make a teachable course for people who want to learn how to build zines and magazines, because that's my background, right? And a lot of people have been, I have a YouTube channel, and people asking me all the time about building newsletters and all these other things on my YouTube channel. So I was like, okay, I'm going to build this thing. I'm going to create a course around it, right? So I'm creating a course. I'm making a zine. I have to make all the art and create all the content for the zine. And then in the meantime, I'm also doing art and illustration and all these different things at the same time, creating a whole new clothing line or whatever for my brand, so it's like I'm constantly moving in all different directions with all these different projects all at once, So I feel like, sometimes I feel like I'm like, okay, I need to focus my energy for a second.
Oh yeah,
Too much going on. Right?
I know what you're saying, because so I do the radio show on Sundays. I do where I talk with authors and artists and entertainers. I write. I also am a journalist. I do articles for the local paper, and then I publish. I just published started a small publishing company But I also like to draw and those kind of things. And it's kind of, for me, everything goes into story. Like, it's all focused on storytelling. And talking about magazines or whatever, I think that's really cool. One of the things that I did with the Savannah Quill that I started back in 2016 was I self-published a magazine interviewing some authors and stuff like that. And with the radio show, I actually am doing a new magazine. I'm putting it out in January. It's called Storytellers Mag, and it's focusing very similar to my radio show, but it's focusing on authors and talking about their story. And the difference between like the radio show and that is it's going to have a 30-minute podcast. And then the magazine, what I did was I have the same 7 questions that everybody gets. So everybody gets the same questions. They write it out, they fill it out, and then the magazine features like their interview, and then features their, I guess, projects and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm putting that together, and man, it's a lot of work. But I have a lot of these little different things, and I always try to like stack it up. Like, okay, well, is this a project that I can do or not do? So like with the guy, going back to the illustration thing, with that guy, I actually talked to him. We used Facebook Messenger, and the dude's in Australia. And I actually talked to him at like 2:00 in the morning my time because I was awake. And he's like 16 hours ahead. And we talked, and I was like, well, I could do this, but I can't do it right now. I can do it, probably by the end of January, because we have a lot of stuff going on or whatever. But it was a project that I was interested in and wanted to collaborate with him, And so I have the same kind of thing, Dave. Like I was like, okay, well, I've got all these different things. How am I going to kind of juggle it? Is this something I want to do? Is this something that, and I'm not anywhere near where you are. I mean, like I am not selling products and merchandising stuff like that, which is really cool. But that's one area that I want to get into. I have T-shirts for sale. I use Amazon merch, but I don't really promote it and push it a whole lot. But I don't do. Mostly, I've done like shirts that of like my stuff that I do, like logos, like type of stuff that I've got for the different events that I host. But I've always thought it'd be kind of cool to do like merch and all, and have like stuff out there. But I don't do enough visual art to actually create something like that yet.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is about that is that I think that there's 2 ways to approach merchandise in my opinion. Is that number one, you can have something that is indicative of your style, or you just want to kind of create stuff that hops on particular trends or fads or gets people's attention for a second, and maybe you are an accomplished artist and that works for you. And then there's the idea that like you creating a community based around what it is that you're doing. You creating something that's bigger than yourself, bigger than the actual art, but rather something where people rally behind the idea of your thing, right? And then they want to buy your stuff not because it's like finely produced art, but because it's you, because it's you, it's what you represent.
Yeah, because they're part of that community. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a friend that I've met through TikTok. Her name is Marie, and she's an art teacher in Pennsylvania, in rural Pennsylvania. And she's just an art teacher, but she had some doodles that she had done. She had actually followed along with me on the Inktober thing, and a couple of those doodles, which were literally just simple sketches that she did on paper. She actually, through something that I had done or encouraged her to do, she took some of that and put that onto merchandise. And it's raw and it's simple, right? But it's something that she can say, I made this, right? I made this. And then everybody who appreciates her and loves what she does, and people are buying it. They're buying her shirt and they're buying her stuff because she's not selling dozens or thousands or hundreds or whatever, but she's selling a few. Just she's proud that other people are wearing stuff that has her art in it.
There's no better feeling than like someone enjoying your art. I mean, like, honestly, it's one of the things that I am always taken aback when somebody enjoys something I've written or something I've made. I'm always like, it's a great feeling. I mean, I love it. I just love it. So
Yeah.
we've got to do the station ID, everybody. We'll be back in a couple of minutes here. And thank you for tuning in today to the Adam Messer Show. I'm your host, Adam Messer. And my special guest today is artist Dave Conrey.
Senior Citizens Incorporated is looking for volunteer Meals on Wheels drivers. A few hours each week will connect some of our area's most vulnerable residents with nutritious food and a regular knock on the door. For more information, contact Laura at 912-964-5411.
WRUULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul.
Do you own a small business? Do you want to get your message out to a dedicated, loyal, and active audience? Then make WRUU part of your company's marketing strategy. Our listeners aren't just passively listening to us in the background. When your company underwrites with WRUU, you're getting their attention. And you're also supporting Savannah's only community radio station. It's an act of both self-interest and community spirit. Connect your brand with WRUU's passion, spunk, and hyper-local focus by choosing an underwriting package that fits your company's budget. Email underwriting@wruu.org for more information. Thank you.
This portion of WRUU Savannah Soundings programming is provided by listeners and by Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day Natural Foods has been serving Savannah's healthy food and supplement needs since 1978. It is located at the corner of Bull Street and Park Avenue. They have available online ordering and curbside delivery, and now a walk-up window for smoothies, juices, and sandwiches from the deli. They are open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 12 to 5:30 p.m. on Sunday. More information can be found at brighterdayfoods.com.
All right, everybody, we are back, and you're listening today to the Adam Messer Show with my special guest, Dave Conrey. And Dave, I had a message over the little break from Darlene and Terry Dremel, who are good friends of mine, and they listened to the show. And they said, you and Dave have a lot in common. And they said the Scrabble game is underway. They like to listen to the radio show and play Scrabble while they're doing that. So, yeah, they're awesome people. Let's see. They just
people can't come up with some big Q words, Q and Z words for them, so they can apply them to their game.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty sweet. Actually, give me 1 second here. This sounds really crazy, but. Everybody, I wasn't actually going to talk about this, but I'm going to say it anyway. My daughter had a baby yesterday, and so my friend sent me a message, and I've got to send him a message back. They had a baby boy, and it's pretty awesome.
That's awesome! Congratulations, Grandpa.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right on.
Give me a second here. So,
is that your first?
Yeah, it's crazy. My wife and I, we've been together since '97, and our daughter was born in '99, so she's going to be 22 in January. And her and her fiance, they had a baby boy yesterday, healthy baby boy, great labor, no complications, no nothing, and. But a friend of mine just texted me, so I'm just kind of, I get that excited feeling, like, you know how it is when you have a baby, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. And then like to have my child have a child is like just mind blowing for me. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, Dave. Honestly, I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah, we haven't even been able to see the baby yet, except through pictures and whatnot, because the safety regulations right now, it's just been her and her fiance in the hospital. So this morning we ran some food over to them, and so that they could have a nice little breakfast or whatever. And so as soon as she gets released and gets to go home, we get to go see the baby. So I'm hoping that'll be today or tomorrow. So hopefully. But yeah, you know how it is. They have to do like the pediatrician stuff and all that before he can go, and have to get all the shots and all that other stuff. But it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, we had to when we had our boy. It was 10 years. Well, yeah, 10 years ago now, and we were in that hospital for a week and a half because my wife had problems and he had issues. I was like, yeah, I get it. So hopefully it's all good and good to go. She's out of there soon enough.
Yeah, it's exciting. He's yeah, it's just amazing. You know how it is. It's like, wow. So
yeah.
But yeah, back to the art stuff. One of the things I really enjoy, because you and I talked back in July, and we had a good little conversation about just art and that kind of thing. One of the things I really love about the internet and social media, one of the upsides I think of social media, is this kind of thing. Like you and your friend, you said, I think her name was Marie. You said, it's, you can connect, like the dude that I talked with from Australia, like he's from Canada, but he moved to Australia. This wouldn't have happened 20 years ago, that we didn't have the technology available to do it. And I feel like it's incredible because it's I don't know how to say it. It makes things incredibly available. And then if you have something that's interesting, or if you have something that is, appealing for people, it's going to rise up naturally. People are going to gravitate towards it. Like you said, it's not so much that they're like, oh, well, I just want to buy this because, because you could go to a retail store and you could buy something just because you're like, oh, it's visually appealing or whatever. With the art and people supporting your art through the community or whatever, they're supporting you because they like you, and they're buying your stuff because they like your stuff. And I feel like it's a whole different connection just because of the internet and because of social media and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I came to that realization, well, I have to remind myself of it a lot, but I came to that realization a while back because, the traditional art world wasn't going to be, it's kind of unaccepting to anybody that doesn't come through the traditional ranks. And I definitely did not come through the traditional ranks at all. And so I've never expected myself to become one of those artists that, hangs in galleries and museums or whatever. I don't ever anticipate that. And so, the art that I make, I feel like it's made for the people who are watching. And if I'm not getting them to watch, then that's on me, and it's probably because I'm not providing value beyond the scope of the art itself. And I just decided a while back that it was like that it's providing value, sharing something beyond just how to make a painting, but rather how to investigate our own creativity, even though we've been told or it had it beaten out of us through, years of people telling us, artists don't get paid any money, you can't be creative, you have to do a real job, you have to do like all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff that we've been told, through our lives as creative people. And, and I think that, I don't get it so much anymore because I think I've probably said this particular phrase more times or enough times that people get that they probably shouldn't come to me with this. But whenever people say, I wish I could be creative like you. And I was like, I hate that statement because number one, you can be creative, right? Creativity is a muscle, right? And it has to be worked just like any other muscle in order to, right? And so by just saying, I wish I could be creative like you kind of diminishes the work that I've put in to get to where I'm at, right? It wasn't just like I popped out of the womb and could do the kind of art that I'm doing, right? And so it's like, I want these people.
You didn't, Dave? You didn't just pop out with like a spray can
with a paintbrush in my hand, a spray can. Right?
And your mom would have been like, what is going on?
And so, it's like that idea that, that creativity is reserved for a particular subset of people that just have, innate talent. And maybe I do have a particular talent for a certain type of art, right? But most of what I've learned, technique and expression, all came through hard-tested, time, in front of a canvas or a computer, right? So, yeah. So I think that sharing that, right, that that you can achieve these things, even if you're not trying to be a famous artist. You just want to have some creative expression.
Yeah.
I mean, sharing that is the goal.
I completely agree. I mean, like, I used to have the same issue, the same problem, because I'd never taken an art class. I mean, like, in grade school they have art or whatever, but I've never taken an art class outside of like 6th grade or 5th grade or whatever it was that we had. And I used to just love drawing comic book art. Like, it was my thing. And I didn't get into painting or anything like that until I was like 2007, 2008, something like that. And it was a friend of mine, his name's Roger, and he went to SCAD, and he actually earned an MFA in, oh my gosh, he's a graphic designer too. And he works for like a network now. But when he was going through his MFA, I used to help him as like his PA, his assistant, or grip, or whatever he needed, and I'd help him, with the videos and stuff that he was doing. And, I started kind of getting into it. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I can dig this, But at the time I was going to school for business, and it was the same thing. It's like, you kind of get, well, at least back, I know when we were growing up, it was like, go to college, get a job, that's the only way you can get out of, you can do this if you get a job. And it's like, well, I wish somebody had said, hey, you know what, there's other ways that you can make a living, and you don't necessarily have to, go to school for business or whatever. I don't regret it. I mean, like, I earned my undergrad, my MBA and all that. I don't regret that. But I had the same kind of thing where, I wasn't a traditional artist, and, but the folks that I've met that, art school is great, and it teaches a lot, like, with you doing marketing, it teaches you a lot about the format, and it teaches you a lot about, like, a formula of how you can do things, and which is really cool. And that's the same thing with the business administration. It's like you learn, a format. It doesn't teach you about creativity. It doesn't, it doesn't teach you about, the work part. It just teaches you, like, okay, well, this is, like, if you want to learn concepts and design layout for magazines, this is this is one path, or this is, these are some tools that you can learn and use. And I feel like that's great, but when it comes to art and it comes to creativity, writing, any of that, like, all that stuff I consider to be art. Any kind of creative stuff, it's all, to me, it's like a form of art. Dance, music, all that stuff, it's all, under art to me. And I feel like, when you're doing that kind of stuff and you are embracing yourself and you're sharing, like, I like to consider it to be like I'm sharing a part of me with you when I'm sharing my art with you, and if I'm creating it for you, then I'm creating it through the lens of what I'm visualizing for you. If it's something that you enjoy and you ask me to do something like that, like a commission or something like that, then I'm trying to create that, with my style, but it's for you,
right.
So I feel like it's kind of cool. It's one of those, I don't know how to say it. Everybody can be an artist. It's just that a lot of people think that they're not.
Right. They've been told they can't.
Right.
They've been told they can't, and they've been told that, or rather, like, maybe they wanted to go to school for that, but they didn't because they were said, well, you'll never get a job, right?
Right. You
and
never make money off of it.
They'll never make money, and so that they just, like, let it go, right? My wife surprised me one time. We were cleaning up the garage, and we were digging through old stuff, and she had her box of her, the stuff that she's had from her youth, and she's filtering through that, and she shows me some of these drawings she did in high school, and I had no idea she ever did this at all.
Oh wow!
And she started showing me these drawings, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, these are really good, right? I mean, for a high school artist who didn't really pursue it, right? I mean, really, really good work. And I was just like, why didn't you ever go forward with it? And I think probably, my wife's Japanese, pretty westernized. I mean, she's fourth generation American. So, like pretty much the traditional stuff has been washed away in her family pretty good. But still, like this mentality of like, like the Asian, what they call the tiger mom. I don't know if you're familiar with that phrase, but it's like the Asian mom who is very domineering and, try to be very controlling. She had that kind of a mother who told her things like, even though like creative expression was a thing, ultimately she wanted her daughters and her son to go do careers that would make sure they could pay their bills, right? And then still maybe make art, but go pay your bills. Go find a job and pay your bills. And so she kind of fell into that, right? Everybody else. Right?
I was self-imposed with that too. We got to do a station ID real quick, Dave, and then I want to hear the rest of that story. Everybody, You're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer. And my special guest today is Dave Conrey, who is an artist. And Sebastian, do you mind playing another little bit of live music for us? Thank you, Sebastian. And Dave, I'm pretty sure you probably can't hear that because of the way the aux is, but it'll be on the replay on the podcast. So
yeah, I can hear it just faintly, but it sounds pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, he's been playing since you were like 13, Bass?
Yeah, about 5 years now.
Yeah, he's been playing for about 5 years, and so yeah, I've seen. What's crazy is like I've seen those meme videos on TikTok of like the Asian mom, and like the kid will say like, "Oh, I love you, mom," and then the Asian mom will say, "Did you do your homework?" or something like that, And so I don't know it firsthand, but I have seen that on those videos, and so I can understand. Like, I kind of self-imposed with that too, because when I came out, I was like, well, I'll never make money as an artist. And like, I didn't know any artists that made money. Like, I knew people that were like a bunch of bragabum bums who were like, this is how I do make art or whatever. And this is of course pre-internet, because I graduated in 94. But I was like, oh, I'm going to go to school for business and I'm going to get a degree in business. And yeah. And then it's like, hey man, about that,
Yeah.
So
it's funny, like where we try to find, we try to dictate to ourselves, like I went into marketing, right? If marketing was what I needed to be, because I couldn't pursue art because I would make it money, and then I ended up like becoming an artist anyway, right? It's like it pulls me right back in.
yeah, I love it too, because I feel more alive, Dave, when I'm doing my art than I do when I'm doing my 9-to-5 gig. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
I just feel alive. I don't feel the drudgery of doing the work when I'm doing the stuff that I enjoy doing. And I like my job. Don't get me wrong. I like my 9-to-5 gig. I work doing industrial electrical work, and I like that. I really like building stuff and problem solving. I really do. But when I'm doing my art, when I'm writing or whatever, I feel like, oh man, this is, like time just melts away, kind of,
Yeah. Well, especially when you're doing it a lot, often without any kind of expectation, right? If you're just doing it for yourself, right? I mean, if you're driven by a particular, like you've got, if you work with this other person in Australia with these commissions, well, then there's deadlines, and then, that starts to impose itself on you. But, for the most part, you just, in your creative mode, you're tapping into other parts of your brain, and it almost feels like meditation to a certain degree, right? Where it's just like you're activating other parts of your mind that just feel different and better than the other stuff.
Yeah, another thing too that I enjoy is connecting with other creative people. Like yourself, I enjoy talking with people who, we're not doing the same things, but we can understand, like, okay, hey, this is I get the same feeling. It's like I like this. That's one of the things I enjoy doing too, is like just hanging out and talking with my creative friends, and supporting their stuff and watching their stuff, and and I mean, I think we all kind of go through those ruts too, and it just being there for them when they need a pick me up, and they're there for me when I need a pick me up.
Yeah. It just reminded me of this. I watched this television show a while back on Netflix, and it was all, what was it called? Chef's Table. And it's all about these stories about these particular chefs, and like some of the greatest chefs in the world, right? But their storytelling around the work, right? And there's so many parallels to some of what they do, like as far as artistry and expertise and inspiration, and taking in information from other sources to kind of create new things, right? And it's just like there's all these different creative pursuits, and like writing, obviously the output of writing is different than the output of art, and it's different than the output of music, and it's different than the output of cooking, right? And all these different things. But there's like this artistry that, like, we share this idea of artistry throughout, and I think that that's just one of those things. It's like it just resonates with people when you can tap into that, right? And you can really get into that space.
I had a friend one time tell me that the difference between a cook and a chef was in presentation.
I can see that, yeah.
It's one of those things like you were just talking about the artistry. Anybody, like, for example, anybody can cook a steak. Maybe not the same way. Maybe not as tasty or whatever. But a chef is someone who takes the time not only to prepare the steak, they also prepare the presentation, because they understand that it's like a full experience. The visual,
yes.
The smell, the taste. Even the ambiance of like the table settings and stuff.
Yeah. It's I think it's understanding, right? The understanding what they want the final result to be, and then almost deconstructing that.
Yeah.
Right. Breaking it down to its core elements. Like, how do I achieve this thing? Right.
Yeah,
so what are the goals? There was on that same, I don't know if it was that show or a different show. There's this chef out of Chicago named Jeff or Greg Aschatz. I can't think. Jeff Aschatz? I don't remember exactly. But anyway, so he's like one of these, what are they called? Molecular gastronomists, where it's like they almost get they take food to a scientific level, right? Where they do the dehydrated food, and they use liquid nitrogen to freeze stuff to create new things. And so he's always trying to explore new ways to experience foods that we assume we know what they are supposed to be like, and then he does it different ways. And he was trying to create these sugar bubbles, whereas like instead of like a cotton candy, it's like a bubble of sugar that you would eat after the dinner, right? And so he had this vision in his head. I know that I should be able to make this thing, and he would, it took him forever to figure out how to get it done, right? But it's like at some point he ended up finally figuring out the method, and now it's like one of his most popular dessert things to do for his guests or whatever.
Oh wow!
Yes,
that's cool.
Just trying to deconstruct it like that, right? And I've been there too, right? Where it's like, how do I get to this result that I'm looking for? And sometimes it's like you haven't achieved the skills, or you don't have the right materials, right? You just kind of have to take that time, and just sometimes it's just going to take more time and energy, and you just have to be dedicated to it.
I love that. And one of the things that I've heard along the way too is we have taste. So like when you're putting art out or you're putting work out or whatever, and it's not exactly what you had in mind, but it's close, but it's not the same. It's because you have taste and you have like this vision, but like you said, you might not have the resources or you might not have the skill sets or whatever, but you put the work out and you move on and you keep growing as you go. And I think that's so important with any kind of endeavor that you want to do in life. You just keep going forward. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we got to take a little break between now and 4, Dave, and I really appreciate you being on. I'm looking forward to talking with you on the next hour, more about the creative side of stuff and all. And I kind of want to dig into with your videos and all, man. I think those are really cool,
okay.
And I want to hear more about that from you.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. We'll be back at 4, and here are some important messages for you.